Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to go over Goal 4, the Great West, and the rise of the debitor. So the first thing that we're going to look at is how do the actual railroads impact the economy of the West. One of the big things that you need to understand is railroads are transportation, and you can transport goods to and from the West thanks to the railroad. And the people who built the railroad were the Chinese and the Irish immigrants. And remember, with the railroad comes civilization. So you increase transportation and the settlement of the area thanks to the railroads. You're going to be able to transport catalog goods, like the Sears robot catalog is going to be able to ship goods out to everybody thanks to the railroad. So in the next one, you have to review the following inventions, purpose, and who invented it. So when we look at the cotton gin, everybody here knows that Eli Whitney is the creator of the cotton gin. Remember, he also does interchangeable parts, which is another big thing that he is known for. He builds a gun in front of a president, and it kind of shows you how quick and easy things can be to assemble. So when Eli Whitney invents the cotton gin, it increases the production of cotton and slavery in the South. So everybody wants slaves now thanks to this invention, because the increase of production of cotton makes it profitable to plant cotton. And now we're going to get the cotton kingdom. Our cotton is king in the South. So the whole Southern economy is based, remember, on cotton and slavery. And then with the 13th Amendment, it frees the slaves. And so that's why they'll go the sharecropping and tenant farming to continue their plantation systems. Even though they won't have the plantations anymore, they'll just have smaller, like little plots of land that they give to sharecroppers and tenant farmers. So the steel plow is invented by John Deere, and basically all it does is cut up the tough soil in the West, allowing farmers to plant in undesirable land. Remember, the West is tough. It has that prairie grass, which has deep roots. And so this steel plow is going to be able to cut it through it without breaking. And so a poor farmer can move out west, and now he can get this crappy land and make it something that's worthwhile. So when you look at the steamboat and you look at who invented it, remember it's Robert Fulton. So Robert Fulton invents the steamboat, and you can go up and down the river. And the reason why that's important is you're going to be able to transport goods quicker. Just like with the railroad, you can move up and down instead of like across the land. With a steamboat, you go up and down rivers. And remember, it allows canals to be built in the country. So please make sure you understand that. The other invention that we should note here is the telegraph. And the telegraph was invented by Samuel Morse, and that's going to allow mass communication. It's that little like that little dot stuff sounding. And that meant something like you had a telegraph recorder and he would write down what the message was. So why are farmers actually upset with the railroads? Basically, farmers feel that the railroads are unfair to them because the industrialists, the factory owners, are paying less in shipping costs than the farmers. The government leaders themselves are receiving rebates. That means they get their money back when they travel on the railroads. And when they got their money back, the message there was, you will vote the way the railroad companies want you to vote. So your congressional leaders, your senators, your House of Representative members, they were corrupt. They were people who were basically voting for big business, so that big business would go ahead and give them, free fares on their train, that they would give them, a nice gold watch, and they would make certain that they remember their birthday and stuff. Remember the example I gave you in class. They always made certain that their wives had a nice, like flowers sent to the house, and whatever it was that the pretty little girl wanted, she was going to get from the big industrialists, because they were going to make certain that their friends in Congress were always going to be rewarded. So listing 3 parts of the populist platform, I gave you the page number in those textbooks, remember that? So 3 parts that you guys need to know. Bimetallism. Bimetallism is silver and gold standard. Farmers would like to have more money, so they want to inflate money. They think if they have more money in their pocket that it's going to be worth something. It's not going to work that way. Remember, every time they actually raise minimum wage, that means the cost of living has gone up. So you might make $7.25 an hour, but it means it takes $7.25 an hour to actually live. So that's only going up with inflation. So it doesn't mean anything. So farmers just think that if they inflate money with silver currency, thanks to the Comstock load, that they're going to be able to pay off their debts. But that's not what's going to happen. Graduated income tax is something else that farmers really want to see. They want to see a tax that they consider a fair tax. And why they consider it a fair tax is the more money you make, the more the government takes. a long time ago, what the tax was based off was how much land you owned. Farmers always own land. They always own a whole lot more land than factory owners. Factory owners didn't really own a lot of land. They might own a couple acres of land, but a farmer owns hundreds of acres of land. And so the farmer who didn't really make a whole lot was taxed the most. And so they're calling for a graduated income tax, which we do see getting passed with the 16th Amendment with the progressives. Nationalization of the railroads means that the government is going to own and operate the railroads, and they want the government to own and operate the railroads because they want to end the corruption in the industry. So nationalization means government owning, and the government does own the airline industry up until the 80s, when President Ronald Reagan will denationalize the railroads. He'll deregulate the airlines. He'll let them go ahead and have their own control again. But the reason why the populace want all these things is because the populace are farmers and they're factory workers, and they're getting upset because everything is not fair in their world. They're starting to see the industrialists making more money, and so they want to make it fairer for themselves. So what is bimetallism, and what if farmers, populace support bimetallism? So they want it to pay off their debts. That's the clear, easiest answer. Okay. The U.S. money system is based on silver and gold. That's what they wanted. And farmers felt that it would increase their money so they could go ahead and pay off their debts. That should be up there. Oh well. Anyway, you have to understand that the U.S. currency back then was based on gold, and paper money was just loan paperwork. That's all it was. So the next question that we're looking at is goal 5. All right, so defining nativism and giving at least 3 examples of it in U.S. history. This is from Goal 5, industrialization. So this is all those tations that we looked at. So when you look at nativism, it's an anti-immigrant belief. And so we don't like immigrants in our country, and we don't like immigrants in our country because what's starting to happen is that the immigrants are working for lower pay than the actual American worker. So there's a lot of Americans who feel that these people should not be allowed in the country. People who are nativists believe that people that are born on U.S. soil are superior to the people who are just immigrating or just coming into the country. And so good examples. The KKK is an example of a nativist group. They dislike immigrants. Sacco and Vanzetti during the first Red Scare, they're Italian immigrants who are accused of killing a cop, but they're basically accused because they're Italian immigrants. The first and second Red Scare, these are both times of high nativist periods where we target immigrants in the country. The Espionage and Sedition Act during World War I, no spying and speaking out against the government. Basically, they go after everybody who is an immigrant. So with A. Mitchell Palmer and his raids on suspected communists, what he's doing is he's basically going after immigrants. Same thing during the second Red Scare under McCarthy, or McCarthyism. He does the same thing. They go after anybody who's suspicious. So the next question is, why was the Chinese Exclusion Act actually passed? So immigrants were not needed because the railroads are actually built, and the nativists wanted it passed. Once you actually have the railroads built, the nativists with the Know Nothing Party really get this Chinese Exclusion Act passed. They don't want the Chinese here anymore because the Chinese are unskilled laborers and they're willing to work for less, and so the nativists want that to end. So the next question is comparing the old and the new immigrant. So the easiest way to kind of remember it is the old immigrant blends in, disappears, whereas the new immigrant kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. So the old immigrant is a white European. They're typically Northern Europeans from Germany or Britain. They speak English and they're Protestant descent. So they blend in, disappeared. The new immigrant is from Eastern and Southern Europe, where their skin is going to be a little bit darker. They're typically Catholic. They don't speak English. They are Chinese as well, and so they do not blend in, and they're easily discriminated against because of this, because you can easily spot them out in a crowd, and because you can easily spot them out in a crowd, it makes it easier for people to discriminate against them. I'm sorry. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next question, and I'm going to try and get this where you can see this question as well. Sorry for the camera to move. All right, so the next question is, what was the purpose of the Pendleton Act? This one you guys have a hard time remembering, but understand the Pendleton Act is nothing more than civil service reform. So to create civil service reform, the government had to end the spoil system. So they ended the spoil system. To the victor goes the spoil. And remember, that's a big thing under Andrew Jackson, is he believed that because he won the election, he should get all his friends in government jobs. Now with the Pendleton Act, you actually have to be qualified for actual jobs in the government. And this is part of the Mugwumps. You remember that name that you guys hate, Mugwumps. They're the ones who actually get it passed. They're the progressive-minded Republicans. They're not progressives. They just would like to see some reform going on. So the first union in America and the downfall. The first union in America is the Knights of Labor. They allow skilled and unskilled workers to join. And that's part of the biggest problem, is because they are not going to have a solid voice. And then they have the Haymarket Square Riot. And the Haymarket Square Riot is where an anarchist, someone who's anti-government, throws a bomb into the crowd. Cops are killed, and the people, the public, they turn against the labor union movement. If this is what happens when labor unions are around you, then you don't want this sort of violence to go on. So which labor union largely focused on skilled workers and its famous leader? This is the AFL, or the American Federation of Labor, and Samuel Gompers is going to make strikes effective because it's only going to be skilled workers that are going out. Scabs really can't replace these kind of workers, and scabs are typically unskilled workers, and so you're just not going to have a labor strike that is going to be ended very quickly. As long as a skilled worker is on strike, it's going to be effective. So what happened to the Haymarket Square Riot, and how did the public respond? So an anarchist throws the bomb into the crowd, kills the cops, the public turns against the labor union. So which industry is this actually going to occur at with all these different guys, right? So Rockefeller is obviously oil, Carnegie is going to be steel, Morgan, JP Morgan is financial banking, and Vanderbilt's the railroads. So defining the horizontal integration, and it's what it's also known as. Horizontal integration is a business practice in which you own one aspect of production. Remember, it's fingertip to fingertip. You own one aspect of production. So people could do everything to get up to that fingertip, but you can stop them. And that's how Rockefeller actually controls Rockefeller Trust. So his trust, his Rockefeller Standard Oil, he just refines the oil. He doesn't drill for the oil. He doesn't do anything like that. He just refines it where you and I can use it. Define vertical integration, and what is it also known as? Vertical integration is a business practice in which you own all aspects of production. This is, remember, the floor up. So you own every aspect of production from the floor up, and that's what Carnegie does. He owns the entire steel industry. What was the Bessemer process, and which industrialists did it help? The Bessemer process was a way to make steel cheaper and faster, and because they can make it cheaper and faster, it allows skyscrapers and bridges, suspension bridges, all that stuff to be built. And Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, is going to be the guy who actually uses it. So that's goal 4 and 5. I'm going to do 6, and I'll keep going, okay guys? But I'm going to end this session on this one.